my need to make things is so deep. It's it's just pushed so many other things aside. It's how I love living. I went to a college that was super political. Oh my God, there was just never not a political conversation going on. But it's wearing too. I kind of left there thinking, I think I have to go out and graze and just live, because really the act of living, what you actually choose to do on a really granular level, is what really makes a big difference. But it's that meeting point, really. It's always about the meeting point of things. I saw that with carving. I see it with color. It's like my thoughts and the work. It's like things can exist in bubbles, like red is red, blue is blue. But when you put the two together, they suddenly, red tells you something about blue, blue tells you something about red. It's the same with ideas. It's the same about materials. It's the same about people. I mean, I've been collaborating for like 35 years. It's like I have learned a lot about me, and I've learned a lot about him, and about where we don't interact and where we do. But both of us look at each other pretty regularly and say, I would never have done this without you. It's like, and I think what I'm trying to find is that the things I know from the world around me and from working with materials are actually principles that are just absolute core principles about everything. I worked on a farm after I graduated from college, and on Martha's Vineyard, and that's where I met Mark. He was doing carpentry. We had, oddly, a fellow artist, ceramicist, Mapo Kennard. She introduced us, and I guess that was it. I just have always been making things, always, always. And to find somebody else who will just be in that headspace of using materials, thinking about what you're going to do. Very quickly, we were making things together, because we always have had this ongoing conversation. This is the way we think. Like, what if you did this? What if you did this? And when he was doing the woodworking, I'm like, I love my wood blocks, actually. Could I carve on the furniture? And so we got really I was really interested in the design aspect of it. And so we started doing that, and we just started building a body of furniture. He has a whole body of knowledge. I have another body of knowledge. We overlap. We pass stuff back and forth. We design together. But, I have this language, and now Polymer for me is like it is my visual language that I apply to all these things. Polymer is how my brain thinks about pattern and color now. It is my brush stroke. And it got to that point with the furniture when I realized not only could I, control the color and the shapes, but I could start to interlock, trim, and fit pieces together and completely control the pattern. And that is when it just went into outer space for me. And I started using all these different shaped cutters to move and switch areas and do this sort of a different type of marquetry where you're getting these really complex patterns that are sort of like nesting. So I've developed all these different techniques for manipulating those pieces of color, and it is it's really interesting. And I think it's great to have started on the furniture level. A lot of people use it in jewelry, but polymer clay has the quality of wood grain, so that it has sort of a micro and a macro. So on the furniture, it looked like wood grain in some ways, and it actually communicated beautifully with wood. It has directional quality, and when you get in close, you're like, whoa, what is going on? And you also see this repetition. Like, we've done furniture pieces where it's just one design repeated over and over, but in that field, it's like like I have to keep records of the little patterns, because if I use one layer slightly thicker than another, that would read across the whole piece totally differently. So I learned so much working in this big piece of real estate, a piece of furniture, I really have come back around to my love of the line that shows the form, that echoes something about a pattern. And that really rings my bells. I discovered geology, cross-section, historical geology. Oh my God, all the things I've been hiking, I could see things that happened over huge periods of time. So that, I've always had this dual love of like biology, geology, and art. And it was all the patterns and all the things you could know from actually visual examining things, and then how you could express them yourself and interact with them. All this stuff. And I'm like, oh, when you squeeze layers of color, you can create these patterns. And I started thinking about shell patterns and cell patterns and all this. And I just totally fell in love with this medium. And when I have this vocabulary of wood, metal, and polymer, it's like, yeah, we can make jewelry, we can make wearable pieces, we can make wall pieces. I feel so lucky. I feel like I found something that's like, it is my voice. And we don't want a lot of stuff. We just want to be able to do this. But to have people be able to collect it and love it, and they come back and say, this makes me so happy every day when I wear this. So that intimacy of jewelry is really lovely. I started to understand that drawing and working is like a meditation. And the meditation opens, if you're still enough with things, and you're just really, really present with that so much opens up, and you learn something about it. So the process of doing these wall pieces, like drawing and doing something realistic, I'm like, it's not just copying something. It's something about knowing that thing and holding it in reverence. It's like, the idea is that everything has intrinsic value. It doesn't have to have value because we say it has value. It just has its own value. And what I know about things from a point of view of science and pattern is so deep. In my mind, I'm making leaves. I'm like making leaves, So I'm thinking, how does this thing evolve? How does it come to be? And that process is so deep for me. It's a practice of reverence. And I really hate to say that, when people say my artwork is based on nature, it's like, we are nature. Nature isn't separate. It's existence. It's the just ridiculous abundance of what we live in. It's incomprehensible. And we don't slow down enough. So to even see that amazing thing, just any one part of the world that surrounds us. We get so bottled in our houses and buying stuff, and it's just like so not what about being alive is, So to me, it is a window into me living as fully, appreciating my life as much as I can, and expressing my joy in that. And I think, when I found out I had a spinal tumor, it was pretty scary. I mean, this kind of tumor eats people up, and I found that out when I was 40. And I was just like, what am I doing? I've always used my time really fully, but I was just like, I need to love this life so much. I do love this life so much. So I have to do the things that express the amazingness of existence, So for me, it's my fullest, it's such a drive from so deep inside me, So it was funny because I came back to drawing these birds and making them, but it was just the act of making them. It was like a meditation that kind of brought me back in. And doing these really big pieces, like the flowers and the birds, it allows me to really dive into it. Say yes to a lot. I think that's a great piece of advice. Know that most things are not a life commitment. Know that you're going to grow a lot, and find out what makes you happy and what feels like it comes from you, and just keep watching. Do a lot, but keep watching what you're doing and seeing where it takes you. You'll start to see the lights turn on. I see a lot of people just hit the brakes so hard all the time because it's not perfect. It wasn't what they imagined it to be. But the reality is, it is what it is. It's not what you imagined it to be. So you have to look at what that thing is, and you have to see what it does for you. And it's a lot about how do you want to spend your time. At the end of the day, all we have is time in our lives. It's a gift.